Hello, guys, and welcome to the second part of this lesson. Well, as I mentioned, we are going to discuss certain things related to the French or Anglo Norman influence on the language. If you go to the slide number 22, you will see that there is a proposition of about 10,000 words that were included or that were adopted or introduced into the language in this period. And how about three quarters? That is a lot of words that we still use in modern English, if we can call it that way. Yes. There are a lot of contributions, a lot of different things that we inherited from that Middle English period. Uh, One of them, or some of them, being very noticeable or remarkable, are the suffixes. Right, we have over here a lot of different suffixes that were introduced at the time, such as the ones that I will mention right now. Right, so for example, we have the suffix ash. Right, please, if you can follow in the presentation over there, ash, words that ends in ash. Right, what are some words that end in ash? Like how are some of the different ones? Think about, for example, bandage, or courage, or garbage, or well, different ones, right? Or passage, for example, right? Uh, so when the final part is considered as a suffix, yes, normally it has an ending that indicates something. No, so think about Spanish, for example, right? What does it mean, the ending ash in Spanish? What would it be? Well, sure, it will be aje, right? Most of the times that will be like the translation or somehow the equivalence in Spanish. So just passage, that is pasaje, right? Or message, that is mensaje. Now, interestingly, all of these are pretty close, yes, because the words in modern French are pretty similar and sometimes even the same than the words in English. So take, for instance, massage. Yes, it is pronounced more or less in the same way. Yes, in French, in Spanish, and in English. Right? We have massage, massage, and massage. Right? Um, so all of them are pretty close to each other. We have some other ones such as aunts and aunts, right? Or aunt and aunt, meant, ed, sion. All those are different, right? So let's take a look at, for example, of the words ending in aunts, for example, right? So such as abstinence, adolescence, affluence, right? And what would be? Well, sia, right? Abstinencia, adolescencia, affluencia, right? Um, Violence, for example, violencia, right? And exactly, they are pronounced, most of them, in the very same way that we do it in French as well, right? Let's see, for example, some of the ones that are uh, really similar, no, that we get to know each other, like the ones finishing sion, right? So take a look at those. They are really similar, and they are similar to the ones in French. Well, so these about suffixes. Let's talk about some other categories of words that were introduced over here, and there is a reason for that. Yeah. So many of the words that were introduced into the language, that were somehow adopted by it, were, for example, words that were related to the crown and to nobility, to royalty, right? And that is very simple. Remember that in the previous period, we didn't have any hierarchy of power, right? It really was maybe the strongest person who was the chief of a clan, a warlord, or something similar, and he was in charge of a certain amount of people. But we didn't have this bureaucratic positions or jobs, right? They were not really a thing in there because the organization was really poor. Um, well, in this case, remember that we're talking about a very organized group of people, sorry, that was able to invade this country. And sure, let's say that centralized power, like when one person or a group of people have uh, have the power, uh, is not so good sometimes. Yes, not so good, especially for the most vulnerable population. But undoubtedly, it is very effective, right? Maybe not good, it is effective. They are two completely, well, not completely, but maybe quite different things. Yes? So take a look at the Anglo Saxons. They were completely disorganized. They were powerful but undisciplined. They were very strong, but they didn't have a goal. So when you have a whole amount of people who are organized by an authority, right? Who have a king, who have a governor, who have a general, a colonel, a captain. Well, that guarantees that all these people are going to follow orders somehow, and that they are going to be obeying or let's say concentrating their efforts into a single goal. Maybe they believe in that goal. Maybe they do it for the money. Maybe they do it because they have to. Maybe they do it for the job. Motivations are a lot, right? But the idea is that concentrated efforts are always going to be more effective, right? So taking this into account, there are a lot of different words related to royalty or to nobility that were introduced, such as crown, castle, prince, count, duke, viscount, right? Barons, noble, sovereign, all of those that are like stratification somehow, or let's say different levels of authority, different levels of richness, and that eventually shows status, right? Now it's really interesting that some of these words are exactly the same that they are right now in French and that they were in French back then. Yes, so words such as comte, duke, viscount, baron, sovereign, yes, those are, let's say, slightly pronounced different just because of the English trend, yes, that normally tell us to pronounce it in a specific way. Yes, so we would say Bogota instead of Bogota, right? But these words, the ones that I just pronounced, are exactly the same in French, right? Now there were some other words introduced not only to royalty but to a lower strata or lower level of power, that was government and administration, right? So we have words such as parliament, government, governor, city, yes, that were introduced over there, and exactly the same thing. They are exactly the same words in French. Parlement, gouvernement, they are exactly the same. And in an interesting way, we have words related to court and law. Yeah. How do you imagine was the law on the Anglo-Saxon period? How do you imagine that they settled their disputes? Sure, exactly that way. They kill each other. Yes. So if I said that chicken was mine, and the other person said no, that was mine. So back in the Anglo-Saxon, they just fight each other, and whoever was left alive, well, that was the owner of the chicken, no matter if it was the original or not. It was like the rule of strength, right? Well, here this society that was trying to be a little bit more civilized, if we can call it that way, they required of institutions that guaranteed or tried, or at least apparently provided some semblance of justice. So we have words that are pretty interesting over here, such as court, judge, justice, accuse, arrest, appeal, condemn, felony, verdict, traitor, contract. All these different vocabulary that is related to legal issues. If you have seen any movie about lawyers or series or things like that, you will see that they are used all the time. And of course, in real life, I provide examples of movies and TV because that's probably the closest one that you have experienced. But well, in real life, we use all this vocabulary over there. Um, Now, the following case is really interesting, yeah, because there were some words related to war and combat that were introduced. So let's take a look at them, and I'll ask you a question in a second. It says words such as army, armor, archer, battle, soldier, guard, courage, peace, enemy, or destroy, right? So why, if since the very previous period we are in a constant state of war, battle, and actually that is one of the most important characteristics, why these words didn't exist back then, or were not introduced, or at least they were not mentioned in this way? Yes. So Natalie, why do you think that they are introduced over here? Right, sure, you're right. It is because it is a different level of organization. Yes, there were soldiers in the Anglo-Saxon period. No, not really, not in the way. What's the difference, or not in that way? I mean, what's the difference between a warrior and a soldier? Because basically we had warriors in Anglo-Saxons, but not necessarily soldiers. Okay, a soldier is a profession, right? A person who dedicates, hopefully, his life to learn certain things about strategy, about physical preparation in order to accomplish his function, that knows how to deal with weapons, that knows certain things related to discipline, to his uniform, to his code of conduct, right? At least that is the ideal, right? Um, so that was completely different from the root of the Anglo-Saxon period, that didn't really have a profession other than pillaging and destroying and raping. Sure, there may be subdivisions of somehow work. Maybe we had blacksmiths. Maybe we had people who were trained in the management of horses. Maybe who trained the other warriors, but they were pretty unspecific and trained professions or divisions of job, because we cannot really mention them as professions. And in the end, when push came to shove, everybody went into the battle. Yes, no matter what their profession were, everybody went into the battle, right? They didn't really receive either a payment for it. Yes, they basically pillaged everything and stole from people, and that was their payment. But there was not a salary for them. Well, a soldier has all these different connotations that I mentioned. Same for everything else. Army, yes. So the Anglo-Saxons had hordes. That there was all these crowds of people that came to you from afar, and you felt completely scared because you know that you were going to die in a horrible way. That they didn't necessarily have an organization. Again, because I really like to provide all these clarifications. Sure, there are some famous strategies among the Anglo-Saxons, but they are the exception, not the rule. Okay. And well, if you take a look, for example, at some of the other one, archer, yes, that is the person who has the bow and throws the arrow. There is a very clear division of labor, and in this case of battle and organization. So this was introduced in this particular case. Armor, for example. Yes, sure, probably the Anglo-Saxon people had a shield, maybe, and maybe some mail, but not really something that was so specific and well distributed and organized as a soldier of the medieval or the Middle English period, right? Fine. Then, of course, all this organization requires to have something related to authority and control, right? So we have words such as authority itself, obedience, servant, peasant, vassal, laborer, right? Charity, all those words that are associated to that, and that again, many of them are exactly the same in French. Now, this part that follows is very interesting in terms of language, because it reflects how a change in the lifestyle of people may demand or result immediately into a change of language, right? And it is that there was the introduction of the language of fashion and high living. Remember that we were thinking in Anglo-Saxon people and how they just lived day by day. They didn't like expect anything for the future. So even though when there was abundancy, their resources were limited to what they found and stole, right? They couldn't accumulate somehow. Well, this new way of life permitted accumulation of richness, of resources, of food, of materials, of everything else. So that means that whatever you consume is something beyond what you need. Yes, you're able to accumulate, to save. So that creates richness, and when you have time, when you have excess of something, when something is left, when you have more than what you need, so you can create style, you can create let's say things related to luxurious things, right? So let's take a look at some of the vocabulary that we find over here. We have something that is a mansion. Yes, a mansion that it's, a very big house or big property when people inhabit. And that is really, really interesting, because how do you say house in French? What is it? I'm supposed that you know. How is it? Sure, yeah, you're already in 10th semester. I suppose that you must know, especially if you took classes with Piedad. She's really great. She was my teacher of French when I was a student, and she taught me everything I know about French and my heart. Anyways, so how do you say that? You say maison, right? Maison. So this is really close, and actually in the next slide, when we're going to talk about some professions, you will see some other similarities over there. So this mention money, right? Gown, that is a fancy way to say dress, right? Beauty, mirror, jewel, appetite. Yes, what does it mean, appetite? That you will decide if you want to eat something or not. Do you have appetite? Well, it's very different to say, are you hungry? See, the delicacy somehow of the language is different. Banquet, yes, that is not a dinner or lunch or breakfast. A banquet, something abundant, something luxurious. Sauce, rust, biscuit, and all these different things, right? Then, of course, it is pretty evident that appear a lot of language related to literature. And, we will see that literature normally appears when you have the possibility of writing, yes, or of composing, or of reading, yes, and that demands at least a little bit amount of free time, right? Now, if you're working, if you're taking care of your village, trying to avoid people to invade it, well, it's going to be pretty difficult to create literature. It's not impossible. Yeah, we have seen a lot of poetry derivative from the wars, a lot of poetry derivative from difficult situations like we have right now with the plague, with the pest, with viruses. Yes, so it's not completely impossible. But in all those cases, literature already existed, right? So it became some sort of an escape valve. Over here, at this very moment, I'm not saying that literature was invented by the Anglo-Saxon, but of course it was in a very incipient state, right? So that's why it is much more notorious, the expansion of literature in this period, right? So that about the languages that we have over here, right? Now, I really like this one because that is another way to present or to mention uh, the way in which the lifestyle changes language, right? So if you go to the slide number 23, we are going to see some particular inflections or cases in which French or Old English was used. Yes, sometimes. Remember that I mentioned that this was a combination sometimes in this period between Latin and French and English and German and Anglo-Saxon, all of these put together. So sometimes, because of different aspects, they were used in different ways. Yep. So let's start with the ones related to professions. Yes. So normally, when there was a necessity of referring to a profession that was humble, yes, that was normally carried out by poor people, by people of really basic connotations, no educations, etc. They were addressed to in the Old Anglo-Saxon or using the Old English, right? So, for example, baker, miller, shoemaker, all of those that are not really professions that earn a lot of money. A baker, a miller, that is, the person who takes care of the mill. That is normally the ones that is used for harvest and all those different things. For you to know, miller, it's molinero, right? Shoemaker, well, those are professions that were not really profitable back then or respected, so they were named using Anglo-Saxon. It was a thing of status, right? Now let's take a look at the other professions that were respectable, that were desired, that were normally a synonym of money, such as painter, tailor, merchant, right? Those were used or let's say addressed using French names. And again, we have these words that are pretty similar to modern French. Painter, that is peintre, and marchand, that is the same for merchant. No. Now there is a particular inclusion over here that is mason. That has a really interesting, let's say, connotation, at least for me, and it's that a mason is something pretty similar to a builder, right? What we can call today albañil, right? Maybe you're thinking like, well, but an albañil, but it's not a person that is really respected. Not a person that really earns a lot of money. Not a person that is normally provided as an example of education. Yes, some of you may think that way, without being disrespectful to the profession, but it seems a little bit odd over there, right? Well, it's very interesting that it is in there because back then it was really respected, right? Remember that we have all these people coming to a new town, and they want to be appreciated, respected. They wanted to be recognized as powerful. So they decided to build all these castles, forts, statues, monuments, and everything that was like a symbol of their greatness. And for that, they required somebody to do that. So masons, that were like the albañiles of the time, well, eventually became rich and richer and richer, because they were the only ones with the knowledge to doing this and with the abilities, with the skills, and of course they eventually started like to getting close to the powerful people, and they were able to ascend or to escalate into the society, right? Because of this. And then remember what I mentioned about maison, that was a house in French. Well, same here, it's like a derivation. The masons were the ones who made the houses, right? Who made the maisons. They became so powerful that even they eventually became a secret society full of luxury, full of power, that influenced government that influence a lot of different things in life. Yes, they became really powerful in Britain and in some other parts of the world, even in Latin America. Yes, Masones. Probably you have listened about them, right? So that's it, right? Now to finish this video, we have two more things to talk. We will start talking about the other ones in the next, and it's food, for example. So when the animals were in their natural state, they were alive and they were crude somehow, not really processed. Yes, so they use Anglo-Saxon names, such as the ones that we have over here: sheep, cow, ox, calf, swine, deer, right? As they were not really appreciated in that way, they were used or they were named in Anglo-Saxon names. So we see a pattern, no? Anglo-Saxon means poor and raw and uneducated and bad. And then for the food that was already prepared, that was somehow made into a delicacy, yes? And you can associate a lot that with French cuisine, right? With French gastronomy. Well, they had a name in French, no? So we have words such as beef, mouton, pork, bacon, veal, venison, right? Those are mostly, let's say, names of meats, right? Of different types of meats. And once they were already prepared and became a delicacy, something delicious, something to be admired, a work of art somehow, yes, because cooking is something good, something that a few chosen ones can do effectively. I'm not one of those. Only good for eating, but not for cooking. So it was addressed in this way in French. Okay. Well, I'm going to stop the video over here. I don't want to interrupt the next ideas. So as I mentioned, we have like four different instances in the use of French versus Anglo-Saxon, or all Saxon. And well, we talk about professions and we talk about food. Okay, so in the next video we will start talking about some other aspect of these four that I mentioned, and hopefully we will finish our contents related for this period. Okay, so see you in the next video. Thanks a lot and hugs.